Chapter 41. Charlie is sad, but he can't say it. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Unfortunately, winning isn't just about loud slogans. From the kickoff, the Hogwarts team was at a serious disadvantage. Charlie was beside himself with anxiety. He saw that only Cedric was focused on teamwork, while the other two chasers were playing like lone wolves. The moment they got the quaffle, they'd charge straight toward Bosbaden's goal on their own. Sure, their flying skills were impressive, and they could break through the defense, but their attack routes were predictable, and the Bosbaton's goalie wasn't even breaking a sweat. The Bosbaton's players, on the other hand, were a well-oiled machine, their passes perfect, like they could read each other's minds. Despite their best efforts, the Hogwarts players couldn't find a way to counter, and the situation grew increasingly dire. Against such a coordinated team, Wood wouldn't stand a chance, even if he had eyes in the back of his head. Ding! The bell rang, another goal for Bosbaton's, 40-0. The crowd erupted. Bosbaton's fans went wild, while the Hogwarts supporters looked deflated. After Bosbaton scored their fourth goal, Charlie finally snapped. He changed direction and flew straight for the chasers. 10 minutes into the game, and they were already down by 4 goals. How could they possibly win playing like this? At this rate, the score would be over 150 before he even spotted the golden snitch. Forget the golden snitch. Forget the live broadcast. It was time to light into these idiots. Marcus, Debbie, you two beaters, are you guys brain blasted? Why are you just flying around aimlessly? You're getting in our way. And you three chasers, can you even play? My grandma could do better. Especially Landon and Paul, you blew several scoring chances. Do you even appreciate Cedric's passes? If you two don't start cooperating, I'm kicking you off the team, permanently. Not even the professor can save you. I mean it. Hearing Charlie's outburst, Professor McGonagall's expression tightened. She pursed her lips, but after glancing at the scoreboard, she bit back her words and just sighed. Unlike Professor McGonagall's concern, Sebastian was somewhat pleased by Charlie's reaction. Now that's a captain. Charlie was a great player and worked his tail off. As captain, he was always polite and respectful, but the team was made up of students from all 4 houses, and Charlie worried being too strict would cause friction. He forgot that sometimes, being polite can create distance. He was usually pretty relaxed with Wood, and because of Muggle studies, Marcus and Charlie had grown closer. At least on the field, Marcus would listen to Charlie, but Charlie barely knew Paul and his friends, and his polite suggestions usually went in one ear and out the other. Now, the yelling had a noticeable effect. With Cedric's help, the 3 chasers began to work together more effectively. Unfortunately, despite their efforts, the Hogwarts team struggled to close the gap. 280-60. The game was over, and Hogwarts had lost big. Watching the players trudge off the field with their heads hung low, Sebastian allowed a slight smile to cross his face. The outcome of the game wasn't what mattered. As a professor, he'd clearly seen his students grow and improve during the match. Under pressure, Landon and Paul had actually worked together for the first time. With Cedric's leadership, the 3 chasers' teamwork improved significantly, and after the game, the 2 beaters, Marcus and Debbie, were better coordinated with each other. More valuable than winning or losing was gaining those experiences. Not bad. Turns out a little pressure can be a good thing. Watch that professor with the grin. Snape drawled. I don't know what he's so happy about. Look next to the headmaster. You'd think Fudge had a near-death experience. Sebastian glanced over and saw Fudge's face was like thunder, as black as ink. His smile was worse than a grimace, stuck on his face as he schmoozed with Madame Maxime and Dumbledore. Sebastian subtly smirked and nudged Snape's arm. Severus, as the one in charge, I have to entertain the guests too. Could you keep an eye on the players and make sure nothing goes wrong? Late that night, Charlie lay in bed, tossing and turning. He couldn't sleep, he was losing sleep. Today's loss had been a disaster. They hadn't played like Hogwarts at all. It wouldn't matter if they'd just been outmatched, but thinking about how his teammates had played, Charlie felt embarrassed. During practice, when the 4 teams came together, he could handle it without breaking a sweat. Today's game felt like a bucket of cold water, leaving him totally thrown. After the game, he'd gone straight to the dorm, shut the curtains, and locked himself in, refusing to eat or drink. His head was swimming, and he couldn't even remember leaving the Quidditch pitch after shaking hands with the Beauxbatons players. The only thing he remembered clearly were the disappointed faces and the sounds of girls crying. Now, lying in bed, Charlie could still hear the little wizards complaining as they walked past. He wanted to cover his ears, but all he could hear inside the curtains was his own breathing and heartbeat. He felt dazed, flicking the light on and off. Charlie thought of Penelope, the head cheerleader, as they flew down from the sky. Charlie had seen her crying into her hands, with Percy trying to comfort her. Penelope always led the cheerleading team, cheering for the Hogwarts team no matter how bad the score was. As head cheerleader, she must be under so much pressure. Charlie wanted to shout out loud to vent his frustration. As Seeker, he played perfectly in the match. Ever since he'd first spotted the golden snitch, he'd always been one step ahead. He always felt that he could turn the tide, catch the golden snitch, and lead Hogwarts to victory, but the Beauxbatons players had abandoned defense. They'd swarmed him, interfering with his flight and preventing him from catching the snitch. Charlie reached out toward the light. He gently grabbed at it, as if he had the golden snitch. He felt cheated and wanted to argue that he'd done his best, but a voice in his head kept asking, "Really?" As captain of the Quidditch team, Charlie couldn't honestly say he'd done his best. He'd known about the team's teamwork problems for a while, but because of his personal relationships, he hadn't been strict enough. That made him unqualified. Remembering the poor teamwork, a trace of resentment rose in his heart. Why hadn't Professor Swann let the Gryffindor team represent the school? If he'd been leading the Gryffindor team, the result would have been better. The resentment quickly faded. After all, what did the current situation have to do with Professor Swann? Professor Swann had provided the team with Quidditch uniforms and the latest brooms, which was good enough. What's more, Professor Swann not only gave the team special training, but patiently taught everyone flying skills and cooperation tactics. Whenever Professor Swann showed up, he always talked about teamwork, as if it was his motto. Today's result was his fault. Formulating tactics and training players was all the captain's responsibility. Charlie suddenly realized he finally understood the difference between the captain of the school team and the captain of a house team, and also understood the responsibilities he shouldered as the captain. In that moment, Charlie seemed to have an epiphany. His doubts instantly disappeared, replaced by a clear understanding of his duty. He realized there were no Gryffindors, no Hufflepuffs, no Ravenclaws, and no Slytherins on the team. They all had one common identity, Hogwarts players. On the school team, he needed to make everyone work together and compete against the other two magic schools as a united Hogwarts Quidditch team. Charlie thought about how confident he'd been when he first became captain, and now he felt like a clown. He sighed heavily. This is so hard. Chapter 42. The Warm-Hearted Man is Cedric. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Facing the warm morning breeze, the owls began their busy day, hooting as they delivered the mail. Charlie, sporting serious panda eyes, sat in the Gryffindor common room, focused solely on demolishing his breakfast. He barely glanced up at the incoming owl. His mind was completely consumed by Quidditch. He was going to whip the team into shape and avenge their last defeat. Anything else was just background noise. Suddenly, Wood plopped down beside him, brandishing a copy of the Daily Prophet. "Charlie, check this out," he said, looking worried. Charlie turned to look and instantly felt his blood boil. The front page screamed, "Sebastian Swann, leading astray." By Rita Skeeter. Charlie was already in a foul mood. This just ruined his appetite completely. Without even wiping his mouth, he snatched the newspaper and started reading. Sebastian Swann, once the world's most dazzling Quidditch star, has come to Hogwarts as a professor to polish his tarnished reputation. He knows nothing about teaching and is simply misleading his students. Yesterday's disastrous competition is proof enough. This author calls on everyone to question whether Professor Swann is deliberately concealing his incompetence or if he's just a complete idiot when it comes to instruction. What was Dumbledore thinking, hiring such a dimwit? The author can't help but suspect some shady deal between Sebastian and Dumbledore. There's ample evidence Professor Swann brought a suspicious amount of alchemical ingredients to Hogwarts before the school year began. Charlie got angrier with every line. His fists clenched, and he was about to explode. That hateful woman. How dare she? How could she paint Professor Swann in such a light? She even attacked his Muggle Studies class. claiming he couldn't even teach that, preferring to drag the little wizards off to the Muggle world for fun. This is not just a waste of time, but corrupting wizards. The cutting word stung Charlie, setting his nerves on fire, his chest heaved, and his eyes burned with rage. He gripped the Daily Prophet so tightly his knuckles turned white, ready to rip the paper to shreds. The murmuring of the other students only fueled his anger, like pouring gasoline on a bonfire. What the paper said makes sense. Isn't Professor Swann in charge? He should take the blame for yesterday's screw-up. Is Professor Swann even any good? Well, he's a Quidditch star, but maybe he's not a great teacher. Hard to say. He's a brilliant seeker, wins every game in under 2 minutes, but he may not know much about other positions. And I agree with Professor Swann's views on Muggle studies. What he did is a betrayal of the purebloods. He takes students to the Muggle world all day long. What good things can there be there? That was the last straw. Charlie leaped to his feet, ready to tear into the gossiping students, but someone beat him to it. Marcus from Slytherin, his face like thunder, slammed his fist on the table. Boom! The noise silenced the room, drawing everyone's eyes. Marcus shot up and charged at a Slytherin student nearby. He grabbed the student by the collar and hauled him out of his seat. Red-faced, Marcus glared at him. Is that thing on your shoulders just for show? Or did a troll eat your brain? Don't you have a mind of your own? Are you just going to swallow everything the paper says? If I write an article tomorrow saying you're a waste of space, will you suddenly become a waste of space? I'm warning you. If I hear you bad-mouthing Professor Swann again, I promise you'll be spending the rest of the week in the hospital wing. That the grabbed student wasn't backing down. He raised his head and said angrily, I think the paper's right. Professor Swann is being unfair to purebloods. Taking students to the Muggle world all day long, it's just wrong. Veins popped on Marcus' forehead. He cocked back his fist and punched the student square in the face. Before his fist could land, a spell shot from across the room, separating them. Marcus assaulted a classmate. Slytherin loses 3 points. Snape stood at the entrance to the hall, his voice dripping with sarcasm. He stalked towards Marcus and the other boy, his black robes billowing behind him. He looked at Marcus with a blank face, then turned his cold gaze on the other Slytherin student. He said slowly, McNeil insulted a professor. Slytherin loses another 20 points. Congratulations, Mr. McNeil, you've just earned yourself 2 months of detention. I think we won't have to worry about running out of potion ingredients for a long time. After punishing the 2 students, Snape turned to the rest of the room. What are you staring at? Don't you have classes this morning? Anyone late to my class will be dealing with flobberworms with Mr. McNeil. The students breathed a sigh of relief and started whispering, continuing their earlier discussion. Charlie had had enough of the atmosphere in the hall. He said hello to his teammates from other colleges, then took wood and went outside the hall. Soon, everyone was gathered outside, but unlike before, everyone was subdued. They all looked down with embarrassed faces. Cedric practically had his chin on his chest. Charlie looked around and said, Has everyone read today's paper? Marcus interrupted, That report is garbage. Don't believe a word of it. I know, the papers are full of it. Charlie frowned. I was just thinking, how angry we were when we saw the paper. How do you think the professor feels? Cedric looked up sharply. I bet the professor's even angrier. He taught us so much, and then yesterday's game was such a disaster. Now he's being smeared and misunderstood by everyone. If I were him, I'd be devastated. Should we go apologize? Maybe it would make him feel better. Charlie nodded. You're right, Cedric. Let's go find the professor now. Chapter 43 Professor, don't cry, I'll help you beat them. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A flash of green, and Sebastian stepped out of the office fireplace. He zapped himself with his wand to clean off the soot, then stretched and yawned. Man, he thought, I was up late grading papers. No energy this morning, even though I slept in, no classes this morning, but he still had to get up and head to school. Gotta prep those lessons, being a new professor meant a lot of lesson prep for Sebastian. Making Muggle studies interesting wasn't exactly a walk in the park. Come on, Sebastian, you got this. He mentally cheered. Next year will be easier. Ugh. He yawned again. So sleepy. Maybe a quick nap on the couch. Knock, knock, knock. Someone was at the door. Who's here so early? His magic sense told him it was a group of students. He opened the door to find 7 players standing outside, avoiding eye contact. Professor, Charlie began, then hesitated. He noticed Professor Swann's eyes were a little red and watery, like he'd been crying. Charlie was stunned, realizing he'd stumbled upon something big. Could it be Professor Swann was so upset that he cried after reading today's Daily Prophet? Why else would his eyes be wet? Awkward. He wasn't sure what to do next. Should I comfort him first, tell him not to take the Daily Prophet so seriously? Or just apologize for yesterday's grades? Sebastian saw Charlie's hesitation and smiled, stepping aside to let the students in. He waved his wand, transfiguring the sofa into a giant, comfy sectional. What's up? Sebastian asked, breaking the silence. Before Charlie could speak, Cedric blurted out, Professor, why aren't you angry? Charlie's heart leaped. Cedric was too young to pick up on social cues. Of course he was angry. Didn't you see he'd been crying? Angry? Sebastian frowned, confused. Charlie's mind was racing. This was a disaster. How do I even start this conversation? Professor, don't cry. We've got your back. Too much. Okay, gotta play this cool. This isn't the time to be bold. Besides, who admits to crying, especially a guy? This is mortifying. I can't believe I caught the professor crying. Charlie wanted to scratch his head but settled for scuffing the floor with his shoe. He glanced at his teammates, who were all staring at him with wide eyes, as if to say, you're the captain. Do something. We're counting on you. Charlie mentally groaned. Nobody remembered he was captain during practice. But now, of course, Merlin, help me. What am I supposed to do? Seeing the professor still waiting for an answer, Charlie took a deep breath and pulled out the Daily Prophet he'd been hiding. Professor, please don't cry. We saw the paper too, and we're really mad. Charlie was on a roll now. But don't worry, Professor, we're all behind you. We don't believe a word of that trash. Cedric looked surprised. He stared at Sebastian, bewildered. The professor was crying. He looked closely and saw that Professor Swann's eyes were a little moist. He was immediately impressed with Charlie. The captain is so observant. I didn't even notice the professor was crying. Amazing. I need to learn from Charlie. Thinking about how angry the professor must have been, Cedric felt sad, and his own eyes started to water. We've really let Professor Swann down. Sebastian's face turned into a silent scream of confusion. Who's crying? I cried. I don't think so. He had no idea what was happening. Why are these Quidditch players here to console me and tell me not to cry? The students looked at him with sympathetic faces. Cedric's eyes were red, and even Debbie, the only girl on the team, looked like she was about to cry. The atmosphere was getting weirder by the second. Sebastian quickly cut in, I'm not crying. You guys are misunderstanding. Professor, it's okay. We get it. Marcus stood up, looking fierce. That Daily Prophet is garbage for printing that stuff. And those students who believe it? Even worse. I swear, if I hear anyone saying anything bad about you, I'll punch them, even if I lose all my points. Me too. Count me in. Several wizards chimed in, eager to defend their professor. Even Cedric, the nicest guy, puffed out his chest and vowed to talk to the other students. Sebastian rubbed his forehead, feeling overwhelmed. Am I becoming the figurehead of some evil movement? He pictured Hogwarts splitting in two, Charlie and Marcus, arms raised, leading their band of supporters, brawling with another group of students, plunging Hogwarts into chaos. Finally, Dumbledore would show up and put down both the rebels and Sebastian himself. Wait a minute, I'm not the Dark Lord. Sebastian shook his head, banishing the bizarre thoughts. I must have stepped out of the fireplace with my left foot first. That's why this feels so wrong. He changed the subject. Okay, everyone sit down. I really wasn't crying. You've all got the wrong idea. And no fighting. Got it? Especially you, Marcus. If I find out you're bullying other students, I'll kick you off the team faster than you can say, quaffle. Sebastian knew something had been lost in translation, but he couldn't put his finger on it. To stop the situation from escalating, he decided to shut it down. He pulled a magic TV and some images from his trunk and said, I seem to recall none of you have classes this morning. How about we review yesterday's game? After seeing the students out, Sebastian sighed and collapsed onto the sofa. He didn't give two hoots about the Daily Prophet article, but the students' concern did warm his heart. Where did this crying rumor even come from? So tired. He figured the whole thing would blow over, but when he went to the Great Hall for lunch, he found that everyone was whispering about him. The murmurs weren't loud, but they were constant, getting on his nerves. Hey, did you hear? Professor Swann was so upset he cried after reading the paper. I know, right? I heard he's been holed up in his office crying all morning. You're so behind the times. I heard after seeing off the Beauxbatons students, Professor Swann was so ashamed he didn't even go home last night. He cried in his office all night and was still crying this morning. Then Charlie and the others found him. I mean, think about all the great things the professor's done for the school, and students are still talking trash about him. I'd cry too. Professor Swann is so sensitive. He doesn't seem like a fully grown wizard. Sebastian's lips twitched. How did this rumor spread so fast? It feels like the whole school knows. People kept looking at him with pity or encouragement. Students would run up to him, pat him on the back, and tell him to stay strong. Sebastian just smiled and nodded, feeling helpless. Screw this meal. I'm having the house elves deliver lunch to my office. Damn it. My reputation. Why won't anyone believe me? And Rita Skeeter, you're to blame. I wasn't going to bother with a little pest like you. But you've made the professor very angry, and the consequences will be severe. Just you wait. I'll send Owl to beat you up. Chapter 44 Who is the Uncrowned King? You are listening at novelfull.audio. If Sebastian had to pick the three most irritating people in the wizarding world, Rita Skeeter's name would definitely be in the running. That unscrupulous reporter was always good at making stuff up and writing sensational stories just to get attention. Her twisted genius was that her stories usually had a kernel of truth. She was just really good at twisting the facts to feed people's curiosity. Rita Skeeter had plenty of enemies, but she also had plenty of safe houses. She moved around a lot, making it hard for anyone to get to her. Normally, Sebastian wouldn't have bothered with someone like her, but now his students were losing their minds, and Sebastian wasn't about to let that slide, even if it was just to let them blow off some steam. Besides, there were rumors flying around school, ruining his reputation. That was unacceptable. Rita, just you wait. He couldn't exactly take it out on his students, but why couldn't he take it out on her? He was about to teach her a lesson. That afternoon, Sebastian arrived at a house on the outskirts of Birmingham. According to his sources, Rita Skeeter had left London and was holed up there. Sebastian stood at the door, using his magic to sense what was inside. He could feel a wizard writing at a table. Found you, Rita Skeeter. He cast a muggle-repelling charm, walked up, and rang the doorbell with a sly grin. Ding dong. Ding dong. A woman with heavy makeup opened the door. She pushed up her glasses and glared at him. Who is it? It's so annoying to be interrupted when I'm writing. That she looked vaguely familiar. I'm Sebastian Swann, he said cheerfully. Sorry to bother you. Instantly, Rita Skeeter's annoyance turned to suspicion. What was going on? Was this trouble? She had just finished trashing him that morning, and now he was at her door. How did he even find her? Don't worry. Sebastian said smoothly. I just wanted to share some juicy news. I'm sure you'll love it. Rita Skeeter relaxed a little. She knew he had a reputation to protect. Besides, he was a Hogwarts professor. He wouldn't do anything crazy. Important news? He was probably trying to bribe her with information. She had him pegged. She knew he craved good press. Rita felt a surge of pride. He was also the richest guy in the wizarding world. She just had to flex a little, and he was already begging for mercy. Okay. Let's see what he had to offer. If it was good enough, she might consider giving him a break and saying something nice in her next story. She happened to be working on an exclusive interview. If she could dig up some dirt on him, it would be a guaranteed bestseller. Rita Skeeter perked up, curiosity piqued. She stepped aside and welcomed Sebastian inside. Please, have a seat. Rita Skeeter sat across from Sebastian, placing a piece of parchment and a shorthand quill on the table. She looked at him expectantly. Mr. Swann, I hope you don't mind if I take notes with my shorthand quill. It'll make things easier. Whenever you're ready, let's get started. Sebastian sat on the sofa and scanned the room. It was neat and tidy, without any unnecessary decorations. A perfect temporary hideout. He glanced at the parchment and saw a title, Sebastian Swann. Underneath was an unfinished story. Sebastian chuckled. Was this a follow-up to today's Daily Prophet article? Was she planning on writing a whole series about him? Don't mind that, Rita Skeeter said with a fake smile. It's just a rough draft, of course. The final version will depend on our conversation. I'm looking forward to a productive discussion. Rita Skeeter subtly threatened him. She felt like she was in control. Sebastian was speechless. This woman had no shame. She was boldly lying to his face. Ms. Skeeter, Sebastian said with a playful look, before we start, I have a question for you. You've made a lot of enemies in journalism, but I always thought you knew when to back off. Sebastian pulled out a copy of the Daily Prophet and tossed it on the table. Do you see me as some kind of pushover? I'm curious, what made you think you could get away with writing this? Before Rita Skeeter could respond, Sebastian went on. I heard you were a shrewd operator. Now I'm disappointed. Rita Skeeter's mouth twisted with anger, her face contorted as she spat. Sebastian Swann, you came here looking for a fight. Get out of my house. You're not welcome here. As she spoke, the shorthand quill flew onto the parchment and began scribbling furiously. Sebastian Swann is not only a hypocrite, but he's also petty and vengeful. He's a dangerous man. After reading my article, Sebastian Swann broke into my home and threatened my safety. I urge everyone to see him for who he is and not be fooled by his image. I'm deeply concerned about the future of the magical world. With someone like this teaching at Hogwarts, what will become of our children? I call for a boycott of Swann's alchemy, starting now. Rita Skeeter felt a twisted sense of satisfaction as she watched the words fill the page. Sebastian. How dare you insult me in my own house? You have no idea how powerful words can be. When this article comes out, you won't stand a chance. And Swann Media. What a joke. When it comes to writing, she was the queen. She couldn't wait to see him ruined. She wanted him to kneel before her and beg for mercy. Chapter 45. Don't disturb the sleeping dragon. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Looking at Rita Skeeter, his face twisted in disdain, Sebastian flashed a playful smile. He unleashed a wave of magic, pressing it towards her. Instantly, Rita's expression froze. She felt like she was facing a giant dragon, the sheer power of his presence stealing her breath. It reminded her of the past, back when he was at the height of his power. She'd been terrified just seeing him across Diagon Alley. Trembling, she yanked out her wand and pointed it at Sebastian. Before she could even utter a word, she gasped. A layer of white frost was creeping up the tip of her wand, thick ice crystals forming in the blink of an eye. The ice spread to her fingers with alarming speed. Ah! That a strangled cry escaped Rita Skeeter's throat. She dropped the wand as if it were burning her. It clattered to the floor, now completely encased in ice. Then, with a sharp crack, it shattered into pieces. Seeing her broken wand, Rita Skeeter's fear finally broke through. She collapsed to the floor, shaking. You, how dare you? The Aurors will come for you. In Rita Skeeter's mind, the worst-case scenario was a continued war of words through the Daily Prophet and Swann media, being attacked with a wand. That hadn't even crossed her mind, because, from any angle, Sebastian had no reason to attack. Sure, he was powerful, but he was also successful now, a professor at Hogwarts. How could he risk it? Wasn't he afraid of Azkaban? Horrors? Sebastian chuckled softly. Ma'am, are you looking to get help from the horrors? I'm always happy to assist. Tell you what, I'll help you cast a warning charm. With that, Sebastian drew his own wand and cast a spell out the window. Then he turned back to Rita Skeeter, took a small bag of galleons, and placed it on the table. I'm sorry about your wand. You can go to Ollivander's and pick out a new one. Less than 30 seconds later, the door burst open. Horrors. This is a crime scene. Nobody move. Hearing the horrors, Rita Skeeter finally got a grip on her terror. She leaped to her feet, practically vibrating with excitement, and rushed to the door. Mr. Orr, I want to report a crime. Sebastian remained calmly seated on the sofa. He waved to the two wizards who entered, and greeted one of them. Hello, Dawlish. With the horrors present, Rita Skeeter's courage returned in full force. Hiding behind Dawlish, she pointed a shaking finger at Sebastian and shrieked. Mr. Orr, he attacked me. Arrest this madman and throw him in Azkaban. Dawlish approached Sebastian. Mr. Swann, if you would, please cast the Priori Incantatem charm. We need to verify if you attacked this woman. Sebastian stood and readily handed his wand to Dawlish so he could perform the reverse spell to check what was casted. Warning charm. Muggle repelling charm. Cleaning charm. More than a dozen spells flashed by, but not a single offensive spell. Dawlish returned the wand to Sebastian with a smile. It seems this is all a misunderstanding. Mr. Swann, you're clear. Clear. Rita Skeeter jumped up and down. This man attacked me. How can he be clear? My wand is broken. Sebastian gave Rita Skeeter a look of pity. How could someone so smart be so clueless? Couldn't she see that the two horrors were in his pocket? Sebastian had planned for everything before coming. He never went into a fight unprepared. As for checking the wands, it was just a formality to help Dawlish write his report back at the ministry. Enough. Are you questioning the competence of the horrors? Dawlish snapped. Based on the evidence, it's clear you broke your own wand. If you continue to cause trouble and falsely accuse Mr. Swann, we have the right to take you into custody at the ministry and send you to Azkaban. Rita Skeeter's face went white. She couldn't understand. Wasn't the evidence obvious? How could she have possibly smashed her own wand? She looked at the stern horrors, then at Sebastian's knowing smile, and a shiver ran down her spine. They were working together. She felt sick. How could two random horrors turn out to be Sebastian's men? Think about it. How many horrors in the ministry were on Sebastian's side? Besides the horrors. Just how far did Sebastian's influence reach in the ministry? Rita Skeeter didn't dare to dwell on it any further. She was filled with regret. How could she have been so blinded by greed as to provoke this guy? She'd fallen for Sebastian's carefully crafted image of someone who cared about their reputation, so naive. Seeing that Rita Skeeter had finally shut up, Dawlish nodded at Sebastian, then turned and left, closing the door behind him. The sound of the closing door startled Rita Skeeter out of her daze. She stared at Sebastian, her face a mask of horror. Can we talk now? Sebastian's smooth voice cut through the silence. Of course. Rita Skeeter flinched and immediately nodded. Professor Swann, please, sit down. Once Sebastian was seated, Rita Skeeter carefully perched on the edge of the seat across from him. Professor Swann, what do you want? Relax, Sebastian said soothingly. I came here today to share some important news with you. As he finished speaking, a lifelike beetle made of ice crystals materialized on the table in front of them. Rita Skeeter felt a chill deep in her bones. The beetle looked exactly like the one she transformed into as an animagus. Damn it. He knew she was an animagus. And he knew her form. What else did he know? Rita Skeeter's mind was racing, and she didn't know what to do. Ms. Rita Skeeter, would you say this information I'm sharing is valuable? Rita Skeeter managed a smile that was more like a grimace. She stammered, yes, very valuable. Sebastian spoke casually, guess how many malicious individuals coveted Swann alchemy during its development? And how did I treat those guys? Ms. Rita Skeeter, you've offended a lot of people. They don't like you, a pesky little bug, but they can't find you, so they can't do anything about it. Many people are too proud to bother with you. But I'm different, Sebastian continued, his tone shifting. I'm a true Slytherin. When faced with irritating pests, I enjoy responding in even more annoying ways. You're used to getting your way, so I'm going to give you a lesson to help you remember it. With that, Sebastian raised his wand towards Rita Skeeter, a yellowish ball of light materialized, then whooshed across the space and disappeared into her chest, settling over her heart. This is your punishment, Sebastian said, his expression turning cold. I've planted a seed in your heart. If you ever upset me again, then I'm afraid your end, little bug, isn't going to be pretty. Sebastian snapped his fingers, and the parchment covered in reports on the table suddenly burst into malevolent orange flames. Fiend fire. Rita Skeeter screamed and threw herself to the ground, scrambling back towards the wall on her hands and knees, her face contorted in terror. She stared at Sebastian, who remained calmly seated on the sofa, as if a demon was sitting there. Under Sebastian's expert control, the raging flames behaved like docile lambs. After consuming the parchment, they vanished without so much as scorching the table. In the blink of an eye, the parchment on the table was burned to ashes. Sebastian stood and gave Rita Skeeter a mocking bow. Ms. Rita Skeeter, I hope we don't see each other again for a long time. Also, I sincerely wish you sweet dreams tonight. Goodbye. Chapter 46 Sebastian's Bad Taste. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Rita Skeeter was frozen, sitting on the ground like a statue, her eyes vacant and fixed on the spot where Sebastian had disappeared. The sound of his apparition snapped her back to reality, her pupils refocusing. Whether it was fear, anger, or resentment, her lips trembled. She didn't speak, just pressed her hands against her chest. Sebastian's parting words replayed in her mind. I planted a special seed in your heart. Seed. The jerk planted a raging fire in her chest. If she crossed him again, would she be consumed from the inside out? The nerve. A professor openly using black magic like fiend fire. The Aurors had just left, and he was using dark magic to control people's lives. The thought left her feeling hollow. Aurors. Of course he wasn't worried. He probably had the whole Ministry of Magic in his pocket. She'd been right all along. He was a complete fraud. Everyone was buying his act. Everyone. Even Dumbledore was fooled. Otherwise, he'd never let someone like that teach at Hogwarts, planting a fiery curse in someone's heart to control their life and death. It was even more twisted than Voldemort. He was a Dark Lord in the making. How many people was he controlling like this? Rita felt like she'd glimpsed his true nature, but the cost was too high. She shot to her feet and started smashing everything within reach, a frantic release of anger and terror. But even in her frenzy, she avoided the sofa he'd sat on, the table he'd used. Only when she was too exhausted to break anything else did she drag herself to the table. The initial rage faded, replaced by cold calculation and simmering hatred. Wandless, she vowed to destroy that table and sofa, no matter the risk. Then, she would leverage all her contacts, all the favors she'd accumulated over the years, to find a wizard strong enough to remove the fire seed. Rita Skeeter ground her teeth. Sebastian. I'll ruin you once I get rid of this. She stopped dead as she reached the table. The beetle ice sculpture, which hadn't shown any sign of melting, instantly dissolved into a puddle of water. The water flowed across the table, forming two sentences. Friendly reminder. I'm confident that no wizard can detect the seed in your heart. The question is, will you get the chance to try? Rita's limbs went numb, fear flooding her again. She was certain Sebastian was still watching her with some kind of dark magic. The instant she considered striking back, he sent a warning. In a dizzy haze, Rita felt a burning sensation in her chest. She collapsed, clutching her heart, her voice trembling. I was wrong. I won't do it again. Meanwhile, Sebastian was home, having dinner, and relaxing on the sofa, happily watching TV, I wonder if that silly woman will dare to provoke me again, the memory of Rita Skeeter's terrified expression was more refreshing than an ice-cold Coke, as much as he found her disgusting, he had no intention of harming her, she wasn't worth the trouble, and the seed in her heart. Just a souped-up Lumos charm, capable of emitting light and heat, calling it a fiery seed? That was using a little magic to achieve big results. After all, guilt makes cowards of us all, someone like Rita would believe anything, coupled with a little acting on his part, and the triggered spell he left on the beetle ice sculpture. From now on, she'd run for the hills at the sight of him. Sebastian adjusted his pillow and settled in to enjoy the rest of his evening. The days that followed were quiet. Even Halloween, usually a magnet for trouble, passed without incident. The Halloween feast in the Great Hall featured an array of candies and unlimited refills of Coke, to the delight of the young wizards. By December, the skies over Britain had turned a perpetual grey, and Londoners were bundled in thick coats. Sebastian had arranged for the house elves to activate the enchanted heating systems, alchemical devices that were donated to Hogwarts earlier. The castle remained as warm as spring, the students wore light clothes with thin robes in the classrooms and library, they only needed their thickest coats for herbology class and care of magical creatures. Even while watching Quidditch matches, the young spectators held their coats in their hands, otherwise, they'd be too warm. When the stands were renovated, they had added both protective devices and alchemical systems for heating and cooling. The goal was to create a comfortable environment for the audience to enjoy the game. Inside the castle, the young wizards buzzed with excitement, rehashing the Quidditch match they had just watched. Krum from Durmstrang is amazing. He's only in the 3rd year, and he can pull off the Wronski feint. I agree he's good, but Charlie isn't bad either. Yeah, when Charlie followed Krum toward the ground, I thought he was going to crash. Thankfully, he caught on in time. By the way, our team is a lot better. They dominated the whole time. It's completely different from the game against Beauxbatons. True, but the Durmstrang team played well, too. They were down by 100 points, but they fought back without panicking. Definitely. It was an awesome match. Durmstrang played well, but we were stronger. But, Charlie's luck. Seriously. Who'd have thought a messenger owl would fly onto the field and almost take out Charlie at full speed? Otherwise, it's hard to say who would have caught the snitch first. Ha, I crack up every time I think about that. I swear that owl was cursing as it flew away. We beat Durmstrang, and Durmstrang beat Beauxbatons in November. It looks like we're the strongest, as long as there aren't any surprises. I'm super confident about the next game. I think we can win 2 in a row and make it to the finals. The next competition is next spring, which is still a long way off. But we'll be playing away from home. I'm jealous of the cheerleaders who get to visit those 2 schools. I'm on the cheerleading team. I heard there are a lot of beautiful girls at Beauxbatons. I'm going to make some friends. The topic took a turn, and the others made a disgusted face. Sebastian was sitting in his office, there was a letter on his desk, he picked it up. In the lower right corner of the envelope was written, from, Mr. White. Chapter 47 The Concept of Wizards. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Looking at the letter, Sebastian wasn't sure whether to laugh or cry. The owl that delivered it had apparently caused Hogwarts to lose the game. Thing was, the owl was too spooked to approach him on the stands and only delivered the letter after he got back to his office. He broke the wax seal, pulled out the letter, and read. Dear Sebastian, long time no see. Hope you're enjoying life as a professor. After a ton of prep and wading through red tape, the company's finally on track. It wasn't easy, but we're seeing some real results. I'm still hashing out the next steps, and I could really use your input. Hope you can come to London soon so we can brainstorm the company's future. I know we can bring your vision to life. Your friend. Mr. White. P.S. Don't owl back. My employees would freak. Sebastian smiled, stood up, stepped into the fireplace, and operated back to his villa outside London. He called White and arranged to meet for dinner, at 6 p.m., Sebastian arrived at the London villa and rang the doorbell. A man who looked to be in his early 30s opened the door. "Welcome, Sebastian." White gave Sebastian a bear hug, then led him inside, complaining, "You lazy bum. You ditched the company to become a professor. I don't know how you can be so confident." "Ha! The world keeps spinning," Sebastian laughed. "Besides, why wouldn't I trust you? All right, you're here now. You're not leaving until you lay out the next steps." "No problem. We'll talk over dinner." In the dining room, Sebastian looked around the empty villa and sighed. "This place is a little bare. Ever think about finding a lady of the house? Or, a man of the house? At the very least, hire some help." White rolled his eyes. "If I didn't need your brain, I'd kick you out right now." He gestured to the food on the table. "Can't you just enjoy the grub? You're a pain." "Should I go, then?" Sebastian said with a grin, pretending to turn around. White ignored him and sat down. Sebastian laughed, pulled up a chair, and sat down across from him. After dinner, White lit a cigar. He blew out a smoke ring. "Wizard Films and Wizard Publishing are up and running. Walk me through the next phase." "And I still have to ask, why wizard? Aren't you worried about getting sideways with the Ministry of Magic?" Sebastian wasn't worried. The idea of wizards wasn't exactly new. Muggles have always had stories about wizards, werewolves, vampires. Since way back, wizards have been part of Muggle legends. In the Middle Ages, they were seen as mystical people with magic, prophecy, and supernatural powers. Merlin in the King Arthur stories is the perfect example, and beyond wizards, there are the other monsters, werewolves, creatures that transform into wolves during the full moon, showed up in European legends. They gained fame in 19th century stories, transforming at night and changing back during the day. Then there are vampire stories, especially in Eastern Europe. Bram Stoker wrote Dracula in 1897. Count Dracula targeted young, beautiful women. That image influenced movies and books, turning vampires into a horror staple. Maybe, before the 17th century, Muggles feared wizards. With the Vatican's support, the anti-witch movement intensified, leading to the Statute of Secrecy. While it hid the wizarding world from Muggles, the legends of mysterious creatures stuck around through word of mouth, books, and stories. Centuries later, Muggles aren't afraid of wizards anymore. Instead, writers have created fantasy worlds, drawing more Muggles into those worlds. Sebastian picked up his Coke and took a sip. Ever read Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings? That was written by a Muggle. Yeah, but the wizards in those books. White hesitated. They're different. Exactly. Sebastian leaned back with a confident smile. Who decides what a wizard should be? You? Me? Some Muggle writer? Everyone has their own idea of what a wizard is. Like Muggles, wizards come in all shapes and sizes. Wizard Publishing's job is to bring in Muggle writers and get more Muggles used to the idea of wizards. Wizard Films puts those images on the big screen, making Muggles interested in wizards on TV and in movies. Then, they fall in love with wizards as a whole. Then, the image that's unique to our magical world will fit right in. As for the Ministry of Magic. Sebastian's voice dripped with sarcasm. The Ministry thinks it controls everything, but it can't control what Muggles write. What's the connection between the wizards Muggle authors create and wizards in the wizarding world? Besides, Sebastian spread his hands. You live in the Muggle world, running a Muggle company with Muggle methods, and you have Muggles film Muggle stories. It's all so Muggle. Right? No reason to worry about the Ministry. Sebastian paused. Speaking of your Muggle identity. He sat up straight, looked White in the eye, and asked, "It's been 11 years. Aren't you going to restore your wizard identity and surname, White? Though you can always let me call you by your real name in private." Blake. Chapter 48 White. Or Black. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hearing that name, White went quiet, lost in thought. He didn't say a word, just kept puffing on his cigar. Sebastian waited, watching white smoke. The man in front of him had another life in the wizarding world. He was from the Black family, he was Regulus Black, the youngest son, and he had an older brother named Sirius Black. In the books, he joined Voldemort's Death Eaters, but he never really did anything truly evil. Regulus started following Voldemort at 16, because of his family and the so-called glory of pure blood, but he grew to hate Voldemort's cruelty. He realized he was wrong, and decided to fight Voldemort. Finally, he risked everything to get his hands on one of Voldemort's Horcruxes, hoping to end Voldemort's immortality. Sebastian always liked that tragic character. From the moment Regulus started school, Sebastian tried to befriend him. Their similar personalities drew them together, and they became close friends, able to talk about anything. Ironically, Sebastian and Sirius didn't get along because of Snape. Sirius wasn't happy about Regulus and Sebastian's friendship, and the brothers argued about it. Sebastian considered trying to talk Regulus out of joining the Death Eaters. But the Black family was one of the first to support Voldemort, jumping on the bandwagon early. After Sirius openly opposed Voldemort and was disowned, the Black family's position among the Death Eaters became precarious. So, for his family and the pure-blood glory Voldemort promised, Regulus joined the Death Eaters. Even though they were now technically on opposite sides, Sebastian and Regulus remained friends in secret. Judge people by their actions, not their words. That's what Sebastian told Regulus, and Regulus remembered it. Still, he was drawn in by Voldemort's talk of a pure-blood future. It wasn't until he realized Voldemort had no interest in pure-bloods, and that everything Voldemort did was about gaining power, that he began to have doubts. His shattered ideals and his conscience threw Regulus into despair. Voldemort was at the height of his power, and the Black family was in too deep for him to do anything. Remembering his friend's warning, he turned to Sebastian and confessed his helplessness. Sebastian remembered Regulus breaking down, full of regret, but there wasn't much he could do at the time. Regulus wasn't alone. He also had his mother to think about, and she was one of Voldemort's staunchest supporters. If Regulus betrayed the Death Eaters, Voldemort would punish the entire Black family. But Sebastian knew Regulus's character and that he was likely to do exactly what he did in the books, to protect his friend. Sebastian hinted, if you ever find out how the Dark Lord achieved immortality, don't try to deal with it alone. I'll help you, just to be safe. Sebastian secretly contacted Creature, Regulus's house elf, and told him to get help if Regulus was ever in danger. Sebastian was grateful he had thought ahead and asked Creature to watch out for Regulus. When Regulus discovered Voldemort's secret and decided to hunt the Horcruxes, Creature cried and begged Sebastian for help, leading him to the cave where one was hidden. Regulus was being dragged under the water by Inferi. Sebastian arrived just in time to save him. Seeing the lake bottom swarming with Inferi, Regulus was shaken. He didn't want to go back and be Voldemort's accomplice. With Creature's permission, he asked Sebastian to wipe Creature's memory and send him back to the Black family. Afterward, Sebastian took Regulus to heal from the poison, but even though Regulus recovered physically, the mental trauma left him a shell of his former self. He needed a reason to live. To cheer up his friend, Sebastian laid out a new vision for him, a future where wizards didn't have to hide and could live openly. Regulus was intrigued. Finally, he found his purpose. Under Sebastian's guidance, he left the wizarding world and lived as a Muggle, studying and working in the Muggle world. For 11 years, he barely returned, except for a secret visit to his mother on her deathbed. After that, he stayed in the Muggle world, helping Sebastian with his various businesses. When his cigar was nothing but ash, Regulus sighed. Just call me White. Black died 11 years ago. He died in that cold, damp cave, surrounded by Inferi. He paused, a hint of relief in his voice. Maybe one day I'll reclaim the Black name, but not yet. I believe in your vision, and I've made it my own. Regulus shook off his sadness, speaking with renewed determination. I'm working hard to make it possible for wizards to live openly. Besides, I actually like being a Muggle, and I enjoy what I'm doing. What about Creature? Sebastian asked. Why don't you restore his memory and have him come take care of you? Creature. Regulus said, sounding sad, I feel bad for him, even though he agreed to have his memory erased. Since I've already altered his memory, let him think I'm dead. He doesn't need to take care of anyone, so he can have an easier life. Besides, I'm a Muggle now. It wouldn't be appropriate for me to have a house elf around. When I pick up my wand again and reclaim the black name, I'll restore his memory and welcome him back. Regulus straightened up, looking intently at Sebastian. Okay, enough about me. As they say, time is money. Let's talk about the company's growth and future plans. My friend. Chapter 49, Regulus's Efforts. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Talking about the company's growth, Regulus lit up immediately. Over the past 2 years, with the funding we secured, we've been backing a ton of muggles getting into finance, mining, energy, computers, and manufacturing. These agents don't know about each other. They're totally disconnected, and we stay in the shadows, letting them do their thing. Some of the ventures we support hit it big, some flop, but overall, things are moving fast. Also, about that list you gave me, I've invested heavily in some muggle companies around the world, like Microsoft and Apple. There's something off about your list, though. A lot of the companies on it don't even exist yet, like Amazon, Google, Facebook, and the like. Sebastian just smiled. Of course they don't exist yet, it's 1990. Amazon didn't launch until 94, Google until 98, and Facebook was even later. Making those lists early was just a precaution, a way to keep an eye on things and be ready to jump in later, and hey, if we could acquire them early, why not? The list is perfect. Sebastian grinned mysteriously. A prophet gave it to me. Just keep tabs on the founders of those companies. As soon as they're thinking about starting something, we move fast. In a few years, Muggle money will be pouring into our pockets. You're such a mystery, Regulus said, a bit exasperated. I have no idea where you even found a prophet. But I trust the list. The companies we've invested in have already made us a fortune. Regulus nodded, realizing that Sebastian had planned everything. So, basically, we're just moneybags for these companies, right? We stay out of their way and just rake in the cash. What about the real estate we bought? Don't tell me you plan on farming it. Our agent in the East keeps bugging me for instructions. Can you at least give me a general idea of what's up? Sebastian, being from the future, knew the value of that land. The next couple of decades were going to be huge for real estate. In just a few years, that land would be worth several times what they paid, a guaranteed goldmine. But Sebastian wasn't looking to get into real estate. Like he said, he wasn't interested in the money. He was making money to build up the wizarding world, so he had other plans for the land. That land has huge potential, Sebastian said, raising an eyebrow. Think Wizard Films and Wizard Publishing House. We want to bring classic Muggle stories to the big screen, after the images of those works have been deeply rooted in people's hearts. We want to create a magical world inside the Muggle world. Regulus's eyes widened. We could do something like Disneyland, but a magical theme park. Exactly. Sebastian grinned. That's why we're buying up land all over the globe. And a magic park is a total win-win. Not only is it huge for us, but it's also great for the Muggle governments. It brings in a ton of tax revenue, creates jobs, and boosts tourism. They'll be handing out preferential policies like candy. They'll be our biggest allies in spreading the idea of wizards and magic. Sebastian was on a roll. Our magic park will be bigger, cooler, more over the top, more awesome, and way more fun. And it'll be packed with movie tie-ins, like dolls, clothes, armor, everything. We use the method of entertainment invasion. Within 10 years, the concept of wizards will become popular all over the world. Using entertainment to infiltrate their culture, within 10 years, everyone will know about wizards. This is the first step towards ditching the statute of secrecy. Soon, Sebastian continued, Muggles will be running around in wizard robes, playing dress-up. Then we wizards can walk around in the Muggle world without anyone batting an eye. What's real and what's fake? Who cares? Even if we're wearing wizard robes, they'll just think we're cosplayers. Not like now, where we have to try to blend in with Muggle clothes. Regulus was hooked. He slapped his knee. That's brilliant. Silent benefits, a win-win situation for all parties involved. I knew I could trust you. Sebastian was flattered by Regulus' admiration. Of course, that's just the first step. The rest of it will be much harder. It could be smooth sailing, or it could get bloody. Hearing about potential violence, Regulus hesitated for a second, then his eyes hardened. He said firmly, whatever happens, we won't back down. Don't worry, we can do some setup in advance. Sebastian's voice turned playful. For instance, we can support a Muggle political party that's friendly to wizards. Even if things get ugly, we can play divide and conquer, win over some and intimidate the rest. Money, health, and power will always attract a group of Muggles to us. Regulus sighed, impressed. Sebastian, you always think so far ahead. Compared to you, the Dark Lord's ideas are just laughable. Force conquers all. Ha! Sebastian saw things a little differently. The world is about survival of the fittest, and the winner calls the shots. History's always written by the victors. Look at the Muggle world. The first emperor of the East wanted to unify China, and he did it. Now he's seen as a visionary, a legend. That guy with the mustache in Europe wanted to unify Europe, but he failed. Now he's a war criminal, of course. Comparing the mustache man to the first emperor is seriously overrating the mustache man. The wizarding world is even more about personal power. One person can change everything, so maybe the Dark Lord wasn't so crazy. If he'd won, he'd be the good guy. But he wasn't powerful enough. Dumbledore could stop him. Sebastian didn't like the Dark Lord's ideas either. That's why he was fighting against him, working for peace in the wizarding world. Sebastian smiled at Regulus. The magic world is small, but things are complicated. But don't worry, I've got things covered here. I'm leaving the Muggle world to you. You need money to make anything happen. Regulus was confident. Don't worry, I'll take care of it. I won't let you down. I'll do everything I can for the future of the wizarding world. Alright, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Tell me about Wizard Films and Wizard Publishing House. I'm personally overseeing those projects. Don't keep me in the dark. Chapter 50. My admiration for you is like a torrent of water. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Of course, Sebastian was going to do everything he could to help Regulus. This was the key to his plan for the Muggle world. That's why he was already supporting Muggle agents and letting them grow on their own. Wizard Films and Wizard Publishing, though, would be Regulus's baby. Sebastian rolled up his sleeves, grabbed his wand, and cleared the table. He pulled out a roll of parchment, spread it out, and used an enlargement spell to make it table-sized. Then, quill in hand, he began to sketch. A mind map. Regulus, thrilled to see Sebastian diving in, jumped up and stood beside him to see what he was writing. Let's start with Wizard Publishing, Sebastian said, explaining as he wrote. As the one setting the rules, Wizard Publishing can put out regular calls for submissions from all over the world. We're talking adventure, romance, action, suspense, you name it. If it's a killer fantasy story, we're in. Sebastian clenched his fist, showing his ambition. We're going to make Wizard Publishing the go-to place for fantasy lovers in the Muggle world. He drew two branches beneath the publishing house title. Wizard Press, we're splitting it in two. Physical publishing and ebooks. We can break both down even further, a team focused on male readers and one for female readers. Physical books follow the old rules, but ebooks are the future. Sebastian underlined electronic press with a flourish. The internet's blowing up, and we've got to see the potential. Physical books take forever to publish, they're demanding, and slow to gain traction. Ebooks are different. We can be a little more lenient. Drawing on his past memories, Sebastian outlined what an ebook website could look like. We'll build the biggest ebook website out there, so authors worldwide can post their work. Online, word spreads fast. What they write can take off overnight. These authors don't need to be literary geniuses, just tell a good story that's easy to read. Oh, and, Sebastian added, remembering something, we can set up branches of Wizard Films and Wizard Publishing in other countries. That'll open up a multilingual market. After all, plenty of countries don't speak English. Sebastian straightened up, looking at Regulus. and explained the online publishing model he remembered from his previous life. They went back and forth, asking questions and brainstorming. It didn't take long for Regulus to get the big picture. Almost forgot, Sebastian said, patting his head as he looked at the densely filled parchment. Witcher films. Witcher publishing and Wizard films can work together really well. E-books that kill it online. We can publish them as physical books. And if something's a smash hit, we turn it into a movie or TV show. Regulus felt his head spinning and immediately called for a break. He lit another cigarette to clear his head. Right then, his admiration for Sebastian was off the charts, his mind racing. How does this guy know so much? It all makes sense. Amazing. He spends all his time in the wizarding world and knows more than I do, and I live in the muggle world. Guess he really learned a thing or two traveling around as a muggle. Regulus took a deep drag, staring at the parchment covered in notes, mentally replaying everything Sebastian had explained. Only after he was sure he hadn't missed anything did he turn back to Sebastian. Okay, Wizard films time. I already snagged the rights to all those classics you mentioned. Cost a fortune. Here are the contracts. Have a look. He proudly handed over a stack of documents, a smug grin on his face. Lord of the Rings. The Hobbit. The Chronicles of Narnia. Regulus presented the copyright contracts like they were gold. I also hired those Muggle writers you wanted me to track down. They're going to write stuff like Twilight and A Song of Ice and Fire based on those prophecies you gave me. They haven't written anything yet, but the moment they start, I'll buy the rights. Regulus looked puzzled. How can the prophecies be so specific? Aren't they supposed to be vague? Guess my prophecy class was a joke. Where did Sebastian find such a powerful seer? Awesome. Sebastian gave him a thumbs up. He was seriously impressed with Regulus's efficiency. With those copyrights locked down, Wizard Pictures wouldn't have to worry about finding good scripts for the next 20 years. After all, those stories had already proven themselves in his past life. Sebastian could already see the Witcher films becoming a huge success. Honestly, Regulus admitted, these books are fantastic. I've been staying up late reading them. If I want the Witcher films to start off right, I've got to pick the perfect project. But I'm so overwhelmed by the choices, I can't decide. What do you think, Sebastian? Easy, Sebastian said confidently. Start with The Lord of the Rings. And get this director, Peter Jackson. He wrote Peter Jackson's name on the parchment and told Regulus, get him at all costs. Whatever he wants, money, people, give it to him. We need him. Seeing Regulus frown, Sebastian clapped him on the shoulder. He's a genius. Trust me, he'll nail it. If that movie's a hit, we're golden. We'll have a solid foothold in the Muggle movie business, and all our hard work will pay off. Then we can launch a ton of related products, posters, dolls, you name it. The fans will eat it up. And don't forget adapting it into cartoons for kids. They're our target audience. Also, find a top gaming company to make an incredible computer game. The video game market is huge. Regulus's eyes lit up, and he nodded enthusiastically, agreeing with everything Sebastian said. He seemed like someone who had been wandering in the desert for days and had finally found an oasis, or like someone who had been lost in the dark for a long time and had finally seen the light. Regulus soaked up every word Sebastian spoke and wrote on the parchment. He felt like he was wandering in the dark, and Sebastian was his guiding light. Okay, I'm on it. I'll get an animation team together. And we invested in a company called Ubisoft, I think. We can have them do the game when the time comes. By the way, Sebastian, any ideas about works from the wizarding world? After all, the goal is to bring those stories to the big screen, so Muggles can learn about our world. Sebastian glanced at the clock. It was already 11 p.m., he tossed the quill on the table, his neck stiff from hunching over the desk. He twisted his neck, trying to relieve the tension. No need to rush. Let's conquer the Muggle world first. We're Slytherins, we have to be patient. But don't worry. Once we make a name for ourselves, I'll introduce you to a wizard. He's the most popular writer in the wizarding world right now. His work is perfect for us. Sebastian stretched and smiled at Regulus. He's dying to be famous in the Muggle world. You know him. His name is Gilderoy Lockhart.